everyone. Welcome back to the market overview here in your local area. It's Zach Childress, and I'm with Steve Payne.
Steve Payne at Legend Realty, and I'll be happy to. I brought you some good statistics this time. I think this will be interesting.
He sure did. And so that's what the show's about. If you've been watching them, each month we come together, we kind of talk about where the market is, where the market's going. But one of the things we like to do on this show is we really like to dig into like Madison County, Limestone County, and Morgan County and talk about really where it was last month, where it was, in the month that we're talking about, and a year ago. And so the market overview is really to help you guys have an insight on data that you may not have readily available to you, or even have an agent that knows how to get the data. Sometimes that's part of the challenge as well. So on these shows, we post them in our members area underneath free training. You'll see the Real REI Talk Show. They'll be in there, and underneath the video, you'll have a link that you can actually download this market overview, and you can have it for a printout for yourself. But there's some pretty cool stuff that we were looking at. We were just talking before the show and kind of looking at where markets were at. And so we're going to dig into that. But before we do that, I want to take a quick break so you can hear some words from our sponsors. Be right back.
I've had this problem.
Big problem.
I really needed
A good real estate broker.
And I kept searching.
and searching.
There are so many choices.
It's really hard to find one that has all the things on my list.
But I finally did it.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
If you were looking for one as well,
Look no further.
Here's a really good one.
Just use mine.
Use mine.
I'm very satisfied.
Definitely recommend.
Problem gone.
thank you.
Hey, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that. If you need any of our sponsors, please reach out to them. Let them know that you came to them from the Madison County Real Estate Investors Association. And welcome back. And this is all about market overview. Steve, we've been doing this now for a few months. And so I know we're in March right now, but the data we're digging into today is really, we're comparing January's data to February's data, in all three counties in our little local area here.
Right, that's correct.
And we're also going to be looking at where it was a year ago and what we're looking at today. So with that said, Steve, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Because I don't want people to get skewed by this data, because, we could look at the data in one way. We could look at it as a positive note, or we could look at it as maybe not so positive, because sometimes when people think, a market's, not doing as well as it was the last month, they might get nervous. But you're out there in the trenches. You're out there talking to agents, looking at deals. What is your current state of vision on where the market is right now?
I think the market is getting slightly more sane. It was insane for months.
Yeah.
We slowed down a little bit as natural in December and January.
Right.
And we actually got some numbers showing that February is still a little bit slow.
Right.
But I have been going full speed, wide open.
And that seems to be the same thing I'm hearing too from agents and from the banks. I mean, they're just like, Zach, they're coming in. I stopped by, Stanley Mitchell. You know Stanley?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect
So
guy.
I stopped by there this morning, and Stanley was like, Zach, I'm going crazy. He's like, the amount of, business they have going on right now, which is all signs that, we're still in a very, very hot market, maybe just not as crazy as it was towards the end of last year.
Right.
But properties are still selling very quickly, less than a month in most cases.
Right.
So, well, let's talk about the Madison data. So when you guys download this from the video, you'll see a sold column, you'll see a volume sold column, you'll see an average sales, a medium sales, and quantity active on the market. And we're going to be talking about, those 5 columns as we look at this sheet with you. But let's talk about Madison. If we look at Madison from January to Madison to February, when we see quantities sold, the first thing that stands out to me, probably stood out to you too, Steve, was that We sold more.
We did.
We
More
sold.
houses sold.
We sold more. We sold 454 houses in February versus 412 in January.
And the January is the first column, the first row, and February is the second row when you look at it. And yeah, we sold
42 more.
42 more properties.
Which increased our volume because we went from January in Madison of 95 million in sales to February we sold
103 million.
103 million. So all of that says, hey, look, we sold more properties in February and we sold more volume in February. But here's where the tricky part steps in, right? When we look at average sales price from January to February, what do we notice there?
Well, in January, it was 232,000.
Was the average sales price.
Sales price. And in February, it was 227,000, which isn't a significant decrease.
It's $5,000.
But also compared to last year, because that middle column is last year's. And see, it's still way up above what it was.
Yeah, so if we're talking month to month, we are seeing the prices go down a little bit. But when we look at a year ago, if we look at February, a year ago, we were 215.
Exactly.
In January a year ago, we were 210.
Right. Instead of 232.
Right. So from a 1 year data perspective, we're moving up. But from a month to month, we've kind of slowed down. And this is something that I talk about a lot. I'm sure it's something that, because you're an agent and an investor, it's something that you look at a lot. Is I'm always looking at when we're going into a neighborhood to calculate ARV. I'm looking at, okay, well, yeah, all these sold, but what was it listed for versus what did it sell for?
Very good.
Yeah, because that's going to say, you can see there's neighborhoods in here where we're still seeing sales prices greater than list price.
Right.
But then there's other neighborhoods where, you're seeing that the buyers are starting to slowly kind of take a little bit of control when it comes to inventory.
Well, you talking about the buyers?
Yeah, because they're getting them for less than they've been listed for.
Correct.
Which we didn't see that at the end of last year.
No, not really. I mean, the inventory is still low, which is surprising, but it is a little more sane. It's more like now we're not getting as many multiple offers on the properties. And when that price is higher than the listing price, the sold price is higher than the listing price. That was multiple offers.
Multiple offers, multiple offers.
So now you'd get 1 and 2 offers maybe.
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with inventory in some cases, right? There's just not as many for sales in that one neighborhood. I mean, we have a property together for sale, and on that neighborhood, that one street, I think we're the only one listed for sale in that street. Which kind of hurts a seller. Because it's like, hey, what's other people going to sell for? And, is there a push in inventory? Because here's one thing I always say. Like when you have a highly competitive neighborhood, and especially with rehabbers buying, they're pushing value. They're pushing. And if the other guy's pushing and you're pushing, you're both kind of setting that market value because you're pushing those list price higher to try to get more out of it. So when we look at medium sales, and just for our first-time viewers, Steve, explain the difference between an average sales price and a medium sales price.
An average sales price is that you add up all the sold prices together and then divide it by the number of listings, and that'll show you how many, the average price amongst all of them. The median sales price is you take the highest one and you take the lowest one and you find the middle ground.
So get rid of the high, get rid of the low, and shoot for the median.
Well, you're using the high and the low to set the median.
Gotcha. Median. Gotcha. So when we go to the next column, guys, which on this sheet is the medium sales price, January we were 209, and in February we were 185 on the median. And that could, and this, I think this could be skewed a little bit only because it's all of Madison County, which means we could have just sold less high-end properties.
Right.
And that would have skewed our median price way up if we would have had, and we don't know exactly how many of the 454 were sold at 300,000 and greater. And I will say this, I do think this number has dropped, and you could tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right here, but I do think this median price has dropped because there's been a ton of these little houses being sold.
Yeah.
These little $40,000-$50,000 houses. It seems like every time I turn around, these houses are just being listed and sold, listed and sold, listed and sold.
The affordable houses go really fast.
And I think that could skew that number, or both of those numbers.
Not only that, but you have to remember, we've been low on inventory for 2 years in a row.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
so you're running out of houses, people that, you can't make people sell their houses.
Right.
And if there aren't any houses to buy, then
Right. That's funny. I was talking to one of my deal partners last night, and we were talking about these little houses, these little $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 houses, and where they're selling at. And I made the comment. I said, I kind of got out of the little single-family rental houses. I said, but now I wish I would have held on to them, because I was paying $15,000 to $20,000 for these little houses. They're now selling for $50,000, $60,000.
Absolutely. You're so right about that.
I was like, man. I kind of moved out of the little rental houses and moved more into apartments, but I see what they're selling them for now, and I'm like,
I have people ask me all the time, well, I'm kind of looking for an affordable house, maybe less than $50,000.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years ago, that wouldn't have been a problem. Now it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, and
unless it's really
well. And here's
bad.
the other thing too, Steve. Those little houses used to be great rentals. You could pay. You could buy them for $20,000-$25,000, be all in at $30,000-$35,000, and rent them for $650,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like those were little cash flow machines, and now you're spending $50,000-$60,000 for them and renting them for $650,000-$700,000.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the rents are going up a little bit on those little houses, that spread isn't there anymore. But man, these out-of-town investors, they love them. They love them.
They do.
So let's talk about quantity active, meaning the active inventory on the market right now. Right. We saw a little bit of a dip in inventory from January to February. Not a lot. 190 or 1,971 active in January and 1,937 in February,
which is down about 35 houses.
Yeah, so it's not a lot. When this number starts to go back down, I think that's when we get back into a really seller control market. Because it's just like, hey, inventory short. If you want to buy it, you're going to buy it.
The active, you need higher if you want to sell. Oh, you're talking about the seller's market. I'm
Seller
sorry.
control.
I got you. Yeah.
Meaning that there's less inventory to buy, so I'm going to get my price.
Right.
But also when that active inventory drops, it becomes harder for like me and you to find good deals out there because they're just not there.
Right.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So when the inventory goes up, when that inventory number gets to 2,500, even 3,000, you can then get really good deals off the MLS because people are just like, everybody's selling. Like, just give me whatever you'll give me.
The house sits on the market for 5 or 6 months, and they're saying, "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Make me an offer." Make me an offer. But if we go back a year ago, we were 2,254. So February of 2018, we had a lot more inventory on the market. And so it's just been whittling away over time. So
yeah. So that was 2,254 as opposed to the 1937.
Right.
So that's over 100 houses were down. It's
Oh,
200 houses.
That's more than that.
Yeah.
It's like almost 300 houses were down. That would be over 14% drop.
14%.
Yeah, there it is right there. You already put that on there. It's a 14%
It sort of came
drop.
with the deal,
Yeah, that's moving down. So our overview of Madison County is we're selling more properties, we're selling more in volume, but prices are starting to correct themselves.
I believe that's the best summary I've heard yet.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I think those prices are going to go up.
If the inventory remains
That's
low,
what I was about to say.
because this is February, you know, this was.
Yeah, we're not even in our peak selling season yet.
When March rolls around, as usual, it starts picking up.
Yeah, and if that inventory keeps going down, these prices are going to just go whoop right back up. So I think we'll see that again.
I do too.
Okay, well, let's talk about limestone.
Okay.
Let's move over into limestone. So on your sheet, when you download it, limestone is the same way as Madison. The top row is going to be January. The row underneath it is going to be February. So you can look month over month. So the first thing I notice is the same thing as Madison. Limestone's selling more inventory than it did in January for February. And the next thing is volume.
Right.
Volume's the same too as Madison. It's selling more in volume, but it didn't. Maybe it was 31 million in January in sales and 33 in February, which means a couple million more. But in Limestone, that could be a lot of houses. That could be a lot of houses.
Where'd you see the 31 million?
31
there
million
it is.
in
Okay,
Limestone, and then 33 in February.
And then look at the number of houses sold in Limestone County. The average sales price, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the average sales price dropped as well.
What?
Yep. From January it was 261, and then February went to 238.
Correct.
So it's following the same patterns as Madison is.
But 261 in Limestone County
It's
was
a lot.
unrealistic.
Yeah. But that was what we talked about that last month. That was a lot of that new subdivision, new
Exactly.
development that was going on.
The high-priced houses.
I mean, I think Limestone really should be around that 170, 180 price point is where I think it should be. But I think it's cooling off a little bit because if you look at medium, we're at 237 and 209. But a year ago, we were 182. In February of a year ago, we were 182. And I think if you take February from a year ago to February now, that's where Limestone blew up was last year. Subdivision after subdivision after subdivision. And there's only so many houses they can build. Well, Limestone, right. I was about to say there's lots of land out there, but there's only so many houses they can build in 1 year.
But you can't find land.
I have found a bunch of land in Limestone, but it's all overpriced.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Like there's land, but they're wanting $30,000-$40,000 an acre out there of raw land.
Exactly.
Where a year ago you could buy land out there for $15,000 an acre.
And what's that magic number for builders? They can't afford
Under 30.
Under $30,000 an acre, or else they can't.
Yeah, it doesn't
Can't
make
do it.
sense.
It doesn't work.
Right. Or unless they can do zero lot lines. But Limestone hasn't kind of moved to that yet, right? So like if it's 35, 40, they'll still be interested if they can do zero lot line, which zero lot line is just like row houses, right? There's really no yard. They're squeezing them in there. They're looking for density type approval from the city. And I don't think Limestone is really ready for that yet.
They've got some patio homes over there, but you're so right because they didn't sell. They were slow on moving. So they've stopped.
The mindset of someone who lives in Limestone is they want land.
Right.
They can get a bigger house, cheaper, and have more land. So you try to go in there and shove zero lots in there. They're like, well, I can go over to Madison and buy this. So Limestone is really kind of following the same path as Madison County is. Even when we look at active listings, we had. Is that
$599?
$599 and then
January.
$583.
$583 in February.
So it dropped a little bit too. And a year ago, it was a lot more inventory. So inventory, So yeah, I mean it dropped 9%. So Limestone. So for those of you who are investing in Limestone, you're following the exact same path that Madison is right now, which means. I think you're going to see a bump in Limestone too in the next couple of months. I think you're going to see a little bit of bump. Now, here's something that I think we're all kind of excited about, which is Morgan County. Because Morgan County is not following the same path as Madison or Limestone. Even though we do see some trends, for instance, number of solds, it went down from month to month, where in Madison and Limestone, it went up. The other thing that we noticed is volumes and sales was 14 million and 14 million. But here's where I think Morgan County's kind of made a little bit of a change from the last time we talked about Morgan County is their average sales price actually went up. It went from 156 to 162.
Right.
So what do you think the indicator is for that?
Morgan County is finally starting. They're usually behind. Madison County. And I think that the growth is actually starting to come to Morgan County, which is new. They haven't grown in 20 years.
Yeah, that's true.
I talked to the agents over there, and they're just really excited. They're so happy because they're seeing the growth. You know.
Right. Well,
commercial
and is
and
that,
residential.
And is that growth like more around the belt line?
Yeah, mostly.
It's
The
all,
new houses.
That all south of the belt line, right?
Yeah, the east side of town is bordered by the backwaters.
Right.
So you can go beyond the backwaters, and there is some growth out there.
Is there really?
Mm-hmm. Out in Priceville and
yeah.
Indian Hills.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, they're going up in price. Even the medium went up. It went from 137 to 144. So we're seeing a growth there. And then if you look at a year ago, it went from 126 to 144. So it's climbing over
It's
there.
climbing.
Yeah.
And that's in February.
Now, the one thing that it probably took the biggest hit when it comes to active listings.
Yeah.
So Morgan County from a year ago, February a year ago, it dropped 18% in active listings, which would say is an indicator to why it's growing.
Well, there was
Less
623 houses on the market in February a year ago, and now there's 508. So it's again
Less inventory.
less inventory.
And I think this is probably the biggest column that I want to keep my eye on
Yeah.
is the inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is that inventory looking? Like, what's happening with that inventory in March and April? Because I'll just be honest with everybody who's watching this. These little price drops don't bother me for January, February.
Right.
But if these price drops keep dropping in March, April, May,
Now
that's
that would be odd.
that would be
a complete.
that would be like, okay,
Because if you got low inventory, which we do,
yep,
and the prices keep dropping, then something's wrong.
it's a market shift.
Yeah.
That is a telltale indicator the
Right.
market is shifting.
Yeah, I'm not saying that at all.
No,
because that's
we're not trying to
premature.
scare
Yeah.
everybody. We're just saying this is part of real estate. I mean, you got to keep your eye on this stuff. You got to know where it's at so you stay safe, your investment stays safe. You know how to keep your money safe. But let me just say this too. Even if the market shifts, doesn't mean you shouldn't invest. I mean, you just have to calculate longer hold times. You know, if the prices are dropping, factor that in when you're buying. But also another great thing, and I know I say this all the time, is when the market shifts, that's the best time to buy rental properties. Because like everybody's running for the hills. Oh no, the market's going, I'm out, you know? So it's like when the stock market makes a change, everybody wants to jump into real estate. And then when the real estate makes a change, everybody wants to jump back into the stock market, right?
Right.
But I'm all for a change. I mean, I'm happy to be buying rental properties cheap again. So
Well, when it happened.
yeah, I mean, we just don't know. It's like
No.
having a crystal ball. Like, I
Right.
think if we had that crystal ball, me and you neither would be sitting here. We'd be in the Bahamas somewhere. Be like, look, I saw it coming. I'm good. So, which is a great thing.
That would
Hey, so guys, really, the overall consensus is the data proves to us where the market is going to go. It tells us where we've been so that we can keep an eye on how to stay safe moving forward. But ultimately, the indicators that we're saying is look, we're January, we're February. This is always the downtime in the market, even though we're still outselling, January, which is a good sign. I think in March, we'll outsell February. I think in April, we'll outsell March. And so, but we just want to keep our eyes on the average sales price, the median price, and the active inventory. Those three things, because here's why. You could always sell more inventory than last month and have a higher volume. But is that because everybody's dropping their prices? Which as investors, that would affect us. That would affect us tremendously, especially like right now being so competitive out there. There's some deals that I've done where the profit was only 15 grand, because that's what we had to take to do the deal because everybody's bidding on it. And if prices are dropping, that could put you in a pickle on that deal.
Right.
I mean, that could. I mean, when you've got to deal with $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of profit in it, doesn't really matter, because you got enough in there to take a drop and keep moving forward. But, in our world, in the investing world that I play in, it's like I'm constantly trying to buy houses. Some of them are winners, and some of them are just to keep you moving. And those could be $12,000 profits, $15,000 profits, but it's just to keep the money turning, waiting for that next really good deal.
Right.
And some of those really good deals are in that $250 to $350 price range. because they're older houses. They've been let go. You can really go in there, make some. I mean, like the house on Jones Valley. What a beautiful job. I walked that. He did a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
He did a great job.
Yeah,
I mean,
people are looking for those nice big houses that have been modernized.
That's a good way to
fit their
say
new
it.
lifestyle.
Modernized, because that Jones Valley is definitely modernized. I was in there looking at that lamp and I was like, how does this thing work? It was on like a pulley system. I was like, look at this thing.
Yeah, I know. My wife saw that and she said, you know, I love that lamp.
I mean,
And I
that
was
was
like, uh-oh, I got to buy one.
Yeah. Jill looked at it and she was like, where'd they get those mirrors at? I was like, I don't know. The contractor had a designer, which is a good thing. So, Steve, tell me what your conclusion is on where we're going to be in the next 30, 60 days.
Well, I'm not too worried about price drops
Okay.
because the inventory is staying low.
Okay.
As long as that inventory stays low, I just don't see any kind of crashes. This isn't California.
Right.
And so we don't have a whole lot to worry about. We're seeing appreciation in the 5% range and so on. As long as it stays in that range, you know, we're good.
And some neighborhoods are doing a lot better than other neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think it's still a great time to flip.
I was shocked when I saw the appreciation for 35810. And that's just forced appreciation because people are paying more for the properties, right? And when I saw that, I was like, you got to be kidding me right now. I mean, I was pulling some data on, I think it was 3 houses from a year ago, and it was like 12% on some of those little neighborhoods over there.
Yeah, target those first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
That's a great market. That is the fastest selling houses right now.
Because you know 35810, like you know like which streets to buy on, which ones not to. See, I never learned that over there. That was just one area I only focused on if it was cash flow.
Right.
Other than that, I just stayed out of it.
Yeah, just call me if you got a.
Well, I mean, I don't.
I'll tell you.
I know you will, right? You'll be like, yeah, we can flip that
I've shown a lot of houses in those neighborhoods, and you know, the people that I'm showing them to say, I don't really want to be in that particular little block.
Yeah.
And the next block is fine.
Yeah, right. That's kind of like 5 Points too, though. Like 5 Points is such a weird little property or area. I mean, we've done several properties over there, but it is very street specific in 5 Points.
Is it really?
Oh man.
See, you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, it's like on this street I can get 140 a square foot, but this street over here I can get 105.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's just like it's just so skewed over there.
So if you want to know about 5 Points, call Zach.
Yeah, especially call me if you want to know how to get the color changed on your house and what you got to do to go through that. That was a lesson learned over there. So that held us up.
Is it a historic society?
Yeah, it is. And the house that we had was a historic house. It had the plaque out front. It was on the main Pratt Avenue, and changing the color was like, it had to go through a board review, and we were like, we just want to paint it the color of the one across the street.
Well, you know, all you got to do is show some pictures of some houses in 1905 that had that color.
Well, and that's all I said, well, let's just show them samples. But the problem is the board only meets certain times.
I know, once a month, isn't it?
And you have to wait for them to meet to approve. So it's like you're not moving fast. If you're trying to make exterior changes, you're at the mercy of them meeting and approving. I mean, and here's the honest, like they don't deny it if it's reasonable, right? Like, yeah, we're just painting it another color. They just want to approve it. I mean, if you try to go in there with a pink or whatever, I'm sure it would get denied. But it's just something I learned over there. I mean, I'd still buy over there. It's just you got to be a little careful with it. So
there's 2 old neighborhoods in Old Decatur. Historic neighborhoods in Decatur.
Right.
One of them's Albany and the other one's Old Decatur. And you got the same problem there. Yeah. But there's some deals.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I last time I bought a house over in Decatur, I got in trouble. Jill got mad at me.
Oh, imagine that.
Jill got mad at me. What are you doing in my area? Sorry.
You stay in your sandbox.
Yeah, right,
I'll stay in mine.
You stay over there. So, all right. So the conclusion is hey, it's just February. Inventory stays low. You're not worried about prices.
I'm not.
You're not worried about prices.
As long as inventory stays low, and even if it doesn't, I mean, I don't see our prices fluctuating that much.
Well, I always saw, if I go back and look, I always saw prices really getting affected in our area when that active number was over 3,000. When I started seeing and looking at trends, it was like when the active listings were like 3,000 or greater, that was really when I started seeing our prices kind of come down, especially during that 2010 to 2013, 14 era.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
That wasn't completely abnormal.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And that was just, you know, I was looking at data and I was just trying to see like what were some indicators. And every time I looked at it, that was over 3,000.
In the past, Huntsville, Decatur, Limestone, appreciation's 3% per year.
Right.
That's the norm.
Right.
And it just lasted forever and ever and ever.
Right.
And I think it adjusted. I think we adjusted because we went through that bad period where they didn't go up at all.
Oh, I know.
And so now
I had
think we're
some
in
that sat on
adjustment.
the
If
market
it
for
goes
8 months.
If it goes back down 3%, I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not concerned at all either.
Let's see here, 454. So if we look at this is the current active listings on the market. This is what we sold in February, right?
Right.
Oh, actually, we would have to take what we sold in January and what the actives were in February. So I'm just trying to figure out how many months of inventory are in all of Madison County. So if we take 1,937 active listings divided by what the month of sales were the previous month, that means we're at over 4 months of inventory right now on the market.
Anything less than 6 months is considered a seller's market.
Well, and here's something else. Like I know, like the national average is 4 months.
Really?
That is like like the U.S. is a national. The national historical average is 4 months of inventory on the market.
Wow.
But we did some data on this a while back, if I'm not mistaken, and we were finding some areas that were like 1.5 months of inventory, 2 months of inventory, which was really low for those little areas, and why those areas were seeing listing for 110 but selling for 118 a square foot. And that has everything to do with the available inventory. So that's just something you guys might want to look at, like keeping your eye on what is the inventory availability on a market, because that is always an indicator, and it helps with pricing too. So
yeah, I hope we're helping you understand about inventory.
well, you know, we're just hanging out chatting, talking about data. You guys are probably listening, but listen, if you're catching us on the replay video on the website, this will be a download for you, so you can actually pull it out, look at it, print it while you're watching the video, and it'll probably help you a little bit more. So, Steve, thanks again, man.
My pleasure.
I'm
Enjoyed
glad.
it very much.
Yeah, I think this is always good stuff to go over. So, hey guys, this is another market overview with Zach Childress. I'm with here for you at the Madison County REIA. I'm the president, and this is Mr. Steve Payne. He's our vice president at the Madison County REIA. He's also an investor. He's also a realtor. He's also all kinds of different things. He needs to fine tune his path a little bit.
I do. I need to.
Hey, we hope you enjoy this. Listen, if you have any questions, just let us know. If you need any properties listed, let Steve know. If you got any properties for sale, let us both know. So, and we'll see you guys again on the flip side. Thanks again for watching this show. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.